The morning after Salamis, Greek sailors look across the strait and see Persian crews lashing merchant ships together, hauling stones into the sea. A bridge, a causeway aimed straight at their island. The war isn't over. It's escalating, but every stone is a lie. The most powerful king on earth is running away and wants the Greeks to think he's coming for them. To understand the deception, understand the fear. Persia did not quit. Darius had crossed the Bosporus. Xerxes had bridged the Hellespont. They built roads through mountains and canals through peninsulas. When a Persian king lost a battle, he came back with 2 armies. The Greeks expected exactly that. A winter regrouping, a spring offensive, a second fleet. So when stones started falling into the strait, every Greek captain assumed the worst. And that assumption was the weapon Xerxes needed. Inside Xerxes' tent, one voice gave him a way out. Artemisia, Queen of Halicarnassus, the same advisor who had warned him not to fight at Salamis in the first place. Her argument was 4 moves long. Athens burned. Sardis, the Persian city the Greeks had torched a generation earlier, avenged. Darius, his father, surpassed in scope. And Mardonius, his general and brother-in-law, had volunteered to stay behind with a picked army and finish the job. If Mardonius won, the king won. If Mardonius lost, in her words, only a slave is discredited. It was a perfect rationalization. Xerxes already wanted to leave. Artemisia gave him narrative cover. The fake bridge would give him operational cover. There was a harder reason too. Triremes, the warships of Salamis, carried 200 rowers each. Multiply that across hundreds of ships, add the land army, and the Persian host was eating through the Aegean's grain supply faster than ships could deliver it. Winter was coming. Greek harbors were hostile. Even the great king could not feed tens of thousands of oarsmen in enemy waters until spring. Retreat wasn't panic. It was arithmetic. But arithmetic doesn't impress an empire. So the king, who could not be seen to flee, would instead be seen building a bridge, while quietly marching most of his fleet north toward the Hellespont. While Xerxes prepared his exit, his coalition was already cracking. Herodotus reports a curious incident. Persian scribes recorded every captain's performance for the king's eye. So when the Phoenician kings of Tyre and Sidon, commanders of the empire's finest warships, came ashore after the battle, they came with a story ready. Their ships had been driven onto the rocks not by Greek skill, but by Ionian cowardice. Ionians, Greeks living under Persian rule, conscripted into Xerxes' fleet. The Phoenicians wanted them punished. They were standing in front of the king as they accused them. And then, in the strait below them, Xerxes saw something he could not unsee. A single ship from Samothrace, Ionian in the Persian service, rammed an Athenian vessel and got its prow stuck. An Aegean ship rushed in and rammed the Samothracian. 3 ships locked together, sinking. The Samothracian crew did not panic. They picked up javelins, cleared the Aegean deck in a hail of iron, boarded the attacker, and captured it. Then they abandoned their own foundering ship, transferred to the captured one, and kept fighting. Xerxes watched the whole thing. He turned to the Phoenicians who were, at that very moment, accusing the Ionians of cowardice. He pointed at the Samothracian ship, and he ordered the Phoenician captains beheaded for slandering better men than themselves. The next morning, the kings of Tyre and Sidon weighed anchor and sailed home, not in defeat, in protest. The empire's best naval contingent gone because of a single moment of royal scapegoating. This was not a Greek victory. This was a Persian fracture. The coalition that had crossed the Hellespont as one body was tearing itself apart over whose fault Salamis had been. And the answer Xerxes needed, that it was no one's fault because the king does not lose, that answer was no longer available. The Greeks didn't yet know any of this. For days they watched the bridge grow, expecting the assault. Then scouts brought word. The Persian fleet was already hundreds of miles north. The stones were a lie. The chase began. Greek triremes poured out of the straits and ran south along the Attic coast, past the plain of Athens, where Xerxes' royal pavilion still stood among his land army, the army Mardonius would inherit. They didn't stop to fight it. They were after something else. They needed to see the sea empty. Cape Sounion, the southern tip of Attica. A temple of Poseidon stood on the cliff, burned, its columns blackened, mirroring the Acropolis they had left behind. The Greek fleet rounded the headland, and beyond it, empty sea. No sails, no smoke, no enemy. Salamis had not ended the war. Mardonius and Plataea were still ahead. But in that empty horizon, the Greeks understood something new. The spell of Persian invincibility, the belief that the empire always came back, had finally broken.